So, do you feel like Drupal has gotten worse in its later iterations, and are you going to be turning more towards WordPress in your business, and why?
I'm going to be turning more towards WordPress because with Drupal versus WordPress, Drupal in every edition, Drupal 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and soon to be 9, all of them have modules that are written for that version. And those versions are specific. The modules are specific to that version. And you can adapt some code from one version to the next, but you're largely almost rewriting the module. And what's happened is because it's a free and open source project, and some people just don't have a lot of paying champions for what they're doing, they just get disaffected and they move on, and they don't rebuild a module for a given version, which means that version 4 before adoption kind of had some adoption and a good number of modules. Drupal 5 had this Cambrian explosion of functionality. Drupal 6 likewise had a lot because its adoption curve was still going upwards. And then you got to Drupal 7, and that was the big jump. And I noticed a lot of modules kind of dropped out. Drupal got cooler, but a lot of modules didn't catch up and come from 6 to 7. And the jump from 7 to 8 has been more profound. And that's a distinct difference from WordPress, where even though they're up at version 5.2 and they've been running only a couple years less, so they're heading towards, they're only a couple years behind the longevity of Drupal, or the lifespan of Drupal that's played out over, I think, 15 years, 16 years now? And WordPress has played out over a little bit less time than that. So because of that, WordPress gives a lot of opportunities for old code bases to stay with WordPress as it upgrades. So a plugin written for 4.8 or 4.9 will probably work in 5.2 or 5.3. And I'll bet you there's a good chance heading towards WordPress 6, those plugins will still work. So because of that, you don't lose the code base. If anything, you get the code base adopted because everyone's adopting and finding something. That means that people are staying keen on WordPress. And because they're staying keen on WordPress, they're moving along and they're continuing to adopt it. So the adoption curve for WordPress is still climbing. Like, it's a third of the internet and climbing. And Drupal has stayed static at this percentage, which I forget what it is, but they haven't lost percentage, but it's not very laudable that they've only held their own with all the years of work they've been doing. So I think that's really the big distinction, is that Drupal bleeds out adoption with each version, and WordPress gains adoption with each version. So that's why I think you don't really need to stay with Drupal if it means every 2 to 3 years you're guaranteed a complete rewrite of everything, not an upgrade or a rethink, but toss out the infrastructure, remake it, and hope that there's stuff you can lean on, and know that you're going to be sinking hundreds to thousands of development hours into closing the gap. And when you go from Drupal 7 to 8, or soon 8 to 9, you may end up not being able to find some of the precious functionality that you have in your previous incarnation available unless you build it yourself in the current incarnation. And that's why I think Drupal is just not the horse to bet on anymore.